Welcome to our Young Leaders Educational Dialogue or ULEAD Leadership Talk series for the first semester of 2021 to 2022. ULEAD is brought to you by the FEU Career and Placement Office in collaboration with the Office of Student Development. This is Ron Gascon, the coordinator of the FEU Career and Placement Office or CAPO, and I'm also a faculty from the Interdisciplinary Studies Department of FEU Institute of Arts and Sciences. I am your MC and moderator for this afternoon. The Young Leaders Educational Dialogue, or ULEAD, is designed to provide leadership talk and training dedicated to our student leaders by equipping them with the necessary knowledge, skills training, and leadership approaches through engagement with various industry professionals and experts. And for today, our ULEAD Leadership Talk titled Design Thinking. From ideation to execution, we are privileged and grateful to be joined by our speaker, who is also a social entrepreneur and a certified design thinking coach. Student leaders and other participants are invited to participate and engage with our resource speaker later during the Q&A segment by posting your questions in the chat box. Those watching in our live stream via the FEU official Facebook page may also send in their questions in the comments section. So we are really excited for your participation as we progress in our leadership talk today. Just a reminder, please make sure that your microphones are on mute to avoid causing any unnecessary interruptions. Thank you so much for your cooperation. Let us maximize our learning from today's ULEAD event. And now, ladies and gentlemen, for the welcoming remarks, may I call on the Director of the Office of Student Development, Ms. Graciel A. Lintag. Hi, Ma'am Graciel. Good afternoon. The virtual floor is yours.
Hi, Ron. Thank you. There are a million ways on how to do things and how to approach a problem. These ways might be tried and tested once, but there are strategies that involve creativity and innovation. This creative and innovative way of solving problems and doing things is what we term as design thinking. Design thinking, according to Tim Brown, CEO and author of the successful book Change by Design, is a solution-focused, non-linear approach and based on the holistic understanding of human beings and that the problems we face. It is an integrated approach that looks beyond human-centeredness, but looks deeply on the core of human beings. And today, the Career and Placement Office, in partnership with the Office of Student Development and Marketing and Communication Office, brings you to a session of discovery and appreciation to the concept of design thinking and how design thinking can be used as a leadership approach in adopting and thriving in your university life journey and future career paths. You may not be aware, but design thinking has been part of your university life through the FEU learning journey. FLJ is anchored on the principles of design thinking, and today we will get to discover more about the science and art of design thinking. Welcome to the Young Leaders Educational Dialogue, or ULEAD Leadership Talk Series.
And inspiring, welcoming remarks for all of us now attending, participating in our ULEAD Leadership Talk today. And now, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce to us our ULEAD resource speaker, may I call on the Director of the FEU Career and Placement Office, Ms. Maria Carmencita Babes Suva Alfonso. Hi, Ma'am Babes. Good afternoon. The screen is yours.
Thank you, Sir Ron. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Allow me to introduce our ULEAD resource speaker for today. He is the founder and CEO of Kandama Social Enterprise and founder and former CEO and editor-in-chief of Kami PH Incorporated, a digital media company with more than 11 million followers on Facebook. He graduated from the La Salle University, Manila, and just recently completed a master's degree in development management at the Asian Institute of Management with high distinction. As a social entrepreneur, he was awarded as a finalist of the Young Social Entrepreneurs Program of the Singapore International Foundation, and his social enterprise was listed by the Development Bank of Singapore Foundation and the National University of Singapore as one of 100 social enterprise to watch out for in Asia in 2018. He was also featured by Channel News Asia as People of Asia in 2019. As a multidisciplinary artist and designer, He was nominated as International Designer of the Year at the International Indigenous Arts and Fashion Awards in Toronto, Canada in 2020. His works were featured in New York Fashion Week, Paris Fashion Week, Melbourne Fashion Week, and in various other fashion events around the world. He was also elected as president of the Philippine Debate Union and vice chair of the Asian Debate Council, and sat as Philippine representative to the World Universities Debate Council in Botswana and in Manila in 2010 and 2011 respectively. While he is collaborative, he is feisty. He is a feisty debater who has won Taiwan Debate Open, China-British Parliamentary Debate Championship, Philippine Debate Open, the ANC Square Off Law Debate Championship on TV, and many more. Lastly, as an educator, he served as a faculty member of the Asian Debate Institute at Chung-Ang University, South Korea, St. Scholastica's College of Manila, Benedictine International School, and has conducted workshops on debate, argumentation, and critical thinking in Kyrgyzstan, Thailand, Taiwan, China, and in the different parts of the Philippines. He obtained his coaching certification for design thinking from Organizational Change Consultants Organization, or OCCI, Fullness of Life Foundation, Incorporated. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Victor Baguilat. Sir Victor, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, sir. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I think it's been more than like 3 or 4 years since I had a partnership with FEU with respect to my advocacy, which is Kandama. Right? And I just want to say hi to all of the leaders out there as well. I'm glad to be here and to share my design thinking journey with all of you. It has definitely helped me in my advocacy, and hopefully it's a framework that can help you as well. But before I get into that in detail, I just want to show you a video which captures the entire journey as well. Okay, so let's play that video.
In the mountainous region of northern Luzon, you will find the rice terraces of Ifugao. Rice terraces are popular among tourists because of its unique and intricate composition. These terraces were hand-carved by the indigenous people in the region hundreds of years ago. But modernization has threatened the centuries-old Ifugao rice culture and traditions. This is why Kandama was founded. Kandama is a social enterprise founded by Victor Baguilat Jr., who wishes to inspire synergy among master weavers, modern designers, and indigenous artisans. It aspires to keep the Ifugao weaving traditions alive while empowering the women in the community. One way of ensuring that the Ifugao natives will continue preserving their traditions and the terraces that sustain them is by expanding the Kandama market.
My business strategy was to continue tapping the local Ifugao women as the weavers. With my supervision, I helped them come up with innovative product design and diversification, while I am in charge of the product branding and niche marketing. Like most startup businessmen, I experienced using my own life savings to fund weaving workshops and pay for the weavers and weaving threads. For almost a year, I was able to sustain the business expenses, but went to a point that I had to borrow money from my parents. I'm planning to expand Kandama to have the woven fabrics into modern pieces, but I need extra funds to make this happen. Fortunately, I came across BPI personal loan and studied the terms. I decided to apply because the monthly installment for a 500,000 peso loan was reasonable and affordable, at only 19,000 pesos payable in 36 months. What an affordable deal, right? With the additional funds from my personal loan, Kandama was able to continue to provide more weaving workshops and expand the weaving center in Ifugao. Additional opportunities opened for Kandama because of the business expansion. We caught the attention of international buyers, and we are already planning for the official market launch of Kandama by hosting a fashion show in Manila featuring the Kandama modernized woven pieces. Starting your own business is not easy, but with the help of BPI personal loan, I was able to bridge my financial burden. BPI personal loan helped me to make my dream business happen.
So there you go. I think that's right, 3-4 years ago, and 30 pounds ago. So I was like much slimmer. So the title of my presentation today is called Design Thinking for Impact. The reason why I wanted to show the video was largely because it showcased the journey since I started. And it's a social enterprise, meaning at the heart of it is the social impact that I'm creating. The profit is largely just to make sure that the impact is sustainable. So it's largely about the community and what the what I'm generating, the livelihood that we're generating for the community. This brings me nicely to the next slide, which is about the outline, right, of what I will be talking about. So I think that every journey, especially a leadership journey, is personal. So in your leadership journey, you ask yourself, what is your emotional anchor? Ano yung hugot? And that's very important, right? Where are you coming from? And then I will move on with the design thinking journey by talking about empathizing, which is a very important component of the design thinking framework. It's not a linear process, as what was earlier mentioned. And I do agree, it isn't, and it shouldn't be linear. But for the sake of, structure, let's move on from empathizing to defining, ideating, prototyping, and then testing. I think for the most of us, we're very linear thinkers. So that's the easier way of going about the entire discussion. So let's move on to the next slide. Let's talk about starting my design thinking journey. And after that slide, you're going to see the next one, which is a framework on ikigai. This was, I guess, at the onset of my design thinking journey, when I was thinking of a social enterprise. I got really depressed in law school. I felt like that was an existential crisis. I've been in law school for like 4 years already. And on my 4th year, I was like, I'm too fabulous for law school. I felt like a fish out of water, and it wasn't meant for me. So I explored the concept of ikigai, which is an overlap of your passion, my mission, profession, and by vocation, or the things that I love, the things that I'm good at, what I'm paid for, and what the world needs. And my conclusion was that I don't think like being a lawyer was something that's for me, that I can, it's something that I'm passionate about. So that's when I tried to look for my ikigai, and the concept of ikigai like changes. So it's possible that your ikigai like 3 years ago is no longer what your ikigai is now, probably because of the change of what the world needs, or you just have a change of heart with respect to things. But more or less, like ikigai is something has a bit more permanence to it, right? But it may change. So when I was in law school and I got really depressed, I turned to the internet, just like a lot of millennials or probably like Gen Z people. And I typed, what is the meaning of life, right? And some of you probably would have typed the same thing, or you've probably typed, what is love, or what have you. The thing is, I turned to the internet as well. And I came across a YouTube video of someone who was just enjoying life to the fullest, going on scuba diving, skydiving, meeting up with friends, and going to different countries. And I told myself, this is something that I wanted to do. Why am I wasting my life away doing something or fulfilling the dreams of somebody else? And I told myself, okay, let's probably explore and figure out what the life has to offer, what life has to offer. And then at the end of the YouTube video, it was revealed that the reason why the person was doing all of those lovely things, all of the adventures, was because he only had 2 years to live. The person has terminal cancer, and the person already passed on. I think there was a time when I asked myself, if I only have 2 years to live, would I be doing what I'm doing? And at the time when I was in law school, I told myself, no, this is not something that I would be doing. I would be doing something else, something to do with design. I wasn't sure if it was fashion or if it was interior designing. All I know is that I wanted to explore the creative side of who I am. And that's when I left law school to explore things. And I told myself, if there's nothing outside of law school, therefore I'm gonna go back. But if there's something then yay, that's amazing, right? I want to explore that, whatever that thing is. So that was the very onset of my my journey as a social entrepreneur. And the next slide would show Rappler documenting the shift, right? So in 2014, we won this tournament in Malacanang, defending Uber regulation, and then in 2018, I became a social entrepreneur. Yeah, and it was documented. So the next slide is generally the timeline. Okay, next slide, please. So 2015, when I left law school, and then I Googled what to do and came across the Singapore Foundation's open call for a social enterprise ideas. I didn't have any idea. I didn't have any social enterprise just yet, so I was just thinking of what to submit. Right. I guess that's also part of the ideation stage. And then it's true what Steve Jobs said, that you only connect the dots by looking backwards. So I remember the moment when I went to Ifugao to just for a vacation, and then I saw this weaves being sold in Banawe, and they're not hand woven fabrics. Those were machine made fabrics from China or from Thailand. And I told myself, okay, this is going to destroy the weaving industry. We have a very rich culture, and we shouldn't be selling like machine-made fabrics in a place that's rich in history and tradition. And I also remembered that moment when I wrote my thesis back in college, and the things that I flunked thesis twice. And now I realize why. It's because I had to do something that's related to what my thesis was back then, which is women empowerment. So when I was thinking of my Singapore social enterprise idea, those things came to mind, and I thought of Kandama. Okay, so that's what I wanted to do. And it was a 6 to 8 month program, incubation program. So we got into top 16. And then in that program, they taught us different concepts like design thinking, how to make a business model canvas, et cetera. So my background wasn't in business. So this was my initial foray into the entire social entrepreneurship world, and my first time to get to know like what design thinking was. So it took me like more than roughly a year to really finalize the concept, to go through the entire design thinking process, and structure my ideas into a social enterprise. And it was in 2017 when I officially launched it. 2018 was my first show, international show overseas. It was in Melbourne. I think a lot of this were already mentioned by Ms. Suva earlier. 2019, I did New York and Paris. I think 2018 was my initial partnership with the FEU, when there were students from FEU who partnered with us and did the fashion show as well. 2020, we did a collaboration with Miss Universe and Miss Earth Nigeria. And in 2018, which you can see in the next slide, that's our feature with the Vogue Italia, with the Pia Wurzbach. So that was just released several months back, August 25th. Okay. So yeah, so in between the time when I launched it in 2017 till now, of course, it's not simply ideation and implementation, right? Or prototyping. It's a series of, empathizing, a mix of ideation, prototyping, etc. So it's really a very nonlinear process because it's highly iterative. You're not sure if your idea is correct or not. So that's the reason why it's not a linear process. So yeah. So moving on to the next one, which is empathizing for impact, which I think for the most part is the very foundation of design thinking, because you're not creating a product. You're not prototyping something largely for yourself. But I do think that, it's a personal journey. It's you are part of it as well. But it's about who your customer is and who you want to serve. It's about their needs, right? It's about the needs of the community. So for a social enterprise, since we are not simply a for-profit organization, it's important for us to know what the community really needs. And this can be seen in the next slide. So in the next slide, it shows the kind of tools and frameworks that we used, which are appreciative inquiry and the visioning workshop. So we conducted those largely because we really wanted to know what the community wants. So it's true that I'm doing it largely because I have Ifugao heritage, but being one doesn't necessarily mean that you already know what the community needs, right? So you have to watch out for the Messiah complex, that you'll be able to solve everything, right? And address people's problems as a leader, right? And you guys are leaders, and you know that a lot of the leadership failures that we are experiencing right now in our organization, in society in general, in the world in general, is a function of people failing to really listening with empathy. So it's a skill and it's a leadership act that has to be cultivated, and it's part of design thinking as well, right? So we conducted a workshop, and we found out that weaving actually is the strength of the community. So we didn't like jump immediately to weaving and then like invested in weaving. There was a process that we conducted to get to learn that weaving is something that's worth investing on in the community. So the next slide shows the needs assessment that we conducted when I was at AAM, the Asian Institute of Management. So it's part of my research with my team. We visited the community and we conducted further need assessment, just to validate the things that we found out, like to validate our hypothesis from way back. So this was like 2020, like before the lockdown. And despite the fact that it's been several years already since we launched, it's very important to constantly iterate and empathize and really listen to what's happening on the ground. The next slide is about understanding the Filipino millennials, because another component of being a social enterprise is that you're catering not only to the community, but you're also catering to the paying customers, right? You have to make sure as well that whatever product that you're creating is something that they will appreciate. So you have to get to know who we had to get to know like who the Filipino millennials are, who our customers are, what they really need. And in the span of 3-4 years, we've realized that a big chunk of our customers are actually overseas. So that's the reason why we did New York Fashion Week, Paris Fashion Week, etc. These are the Filipinex, if you're familiar with the term. Filipinex. These are Filipino.
So again, I think we have some issues with the connection, but we'll just, of course, wait for Sir Victor, no, to continue his presentation with this part. I think you're all excited to ask your questions earlier when he was sharing his career journey, like right after graduation. Yes, I think. Yeah, Sir Victor is already here. I think he's back. Hi, sir. I think we lost you for a while. We cannot hear you. Yeah, but I think it's okay now, sir.
Okay, so where did I end?
Just here in this particular slide, the understanding the Filipino millennial, that we need to understand more about them. Yes, thank you, sir.
Apologies for that. So yeah, so I was just saying that it's very important to know what the customer, the millennials do, because they're a very big chunk of the market. So yeah, this brings me nicely to the next slide. Can you see the next slide?
Yes, sir. You're still in. I think the slide is about the Fillennial, understanding the Fillennial. Yes.
Okay, sorry. I'm not seeing the slide from your end, but I'll just continue.
Yes.
So, okay. So, the next slide is about the outline. We're moving on to defining the theory of change. So the defining process is not as complicated as really creating a theory of change. You just have to define what the problem is, because sometimes the solution is how you define the problem. It's about the questions that you really ask. So you just start with that. So that's the reason why this is a very important component of design thinking is. But if we're going to see the next slide, it's about the theory of change, which I've developed over time. It might be a bit too taxing if you're still in grad school, in undergrad. But it's something that you can definitely do, especially if you're working, if you will be working in an NGO, or if you want to start a social enterprise. This is something that funders would look for, and it's also a good map to determine whether or not you're really getting the impact that you wanted. So at the rightmost part of the framework, you're going to see the impact that you're creating. What is the impact really? And it would be a great thing if you can tie it with a sustainable development goal of the United Nations. It might be too lofty, but there are guidelines to make it to ground the impact that you wanted. And the leftmost part of the framework is that you're going to see the available input and resources that you have. It's important for you to define these things. What are the things that you have right now, and what are the activities that you should do in order for you to to create the output that you want, and then eventually the outcomes, and over a span of several years, the impact that you wanted to see. So defining things is very important to guide you along the way. Now, this brings me nicely to the next part, or the third to the last part of our agenda today, which is about ideating the breakthroughs, where you think of what are the possible things that you can do to solve the problems that you've stated. What are the things that what are the activities that you should do in order to arrive at the impact that you wanted to arrive at? So that's the ideation. A very important tool that I used, it's called the business model canvas. It's probably something that is being taught in your entrepreneurship class. It's something that I teach in my entrepreneurship in convergent media class, wherein they fill out these 9 blocks. We call it the business model canvas, and these are essentially your hypotheses that you validate along the way, right? So I divided it into 2 parts: the commercial aspect and the social aspect. So this is the ideation process. Now, it brings me nicely to the last part, which is about prototyping and testing. So in the prototyping, this is where you take action already, because you don't want to be paralyzed, by analyzing things, right? Or which we call paralysis by analysis. So you really have to take action. You have a hypothesis, and you have to test it out. It's iterative. It's very agile. So if it's not working, then you go back to the drawing board, ideate again, and then prototype again. Maybe the reason why it failed was because you weren't really you weren't empathizing to the people in the community. Yeah. So you're gonna see on your screen on the next slide is one of our weavers. She's a single mom, and she has to bring her child with her to the weaving center because no one's gonna take care of her. So one of the things that we did, since we employ design thinking, is that we wanted to make sure that our weaving centers are also friendly to kids, right? Because it also works as a makeshift child care daycare center for the kids of the weavers. So in the prototyping type phase, we were able to establish 3 weaving centers. Actually, we only have 2 right now. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we had to let go of 1 weaving center. And then we've conducted 4 weaving workshops so far. and then 2 women empowerment workshops in collaboration with different government agencies. We've trained around 29 weavers, and we've had like several partners so far, which is part of the prototyping part and the testing part, right? You don't know like which ones are working, right? You don't know if the partnerships are going to work and stuff. But the thing is that you have to start from somewhere, and then you test it out. You test your hypothesis. So that's what the testing is about. The next stage, the next slide, you're going to see the pivots that we've created in 2020. You know, it's a very difficult year for all of us. It's a very difficult year for organizations, for businesses, specifically social enterprises, which has to maintain a bottom line, which is profit, and at the same time, you know, like protection of the community and the interests of the weavers. So these are some of the things that we did. We prototyped, started with discretionary to essential products. We made like masks. At a time when people weren't making it, we used hand woven fabrics. We stopped it anymore because everyone's doing it. But again, that's also part of the design thinking process. You determine what parts of the business or the social enterprise that you stop, what parts are of the business that you continue, that you grow, etc. Then we also identified who should we collaborate with, who should we co-create with, and how else are we going to reach our market if they can't do shows overseas. Maybe we should do like a film, like a digital film, and so these are the pivots that we've created in 2020. So in the next few slides, you're going to see the different prototyping that we actually did. Next slide is about expansion in North America. Then after that one, you're going to see the podcast that I did with Filipinx in order to reach them. So this is the part of the process of determining whether or not the Filipinx really is the market for us. So we needed to hear what they have to say. So this is part of the empathizing. Again, it's a non-linear iterative process. Moving on to one of the things that we created, one of the events that we created, Save the Weave project. And then after that one is the series of media knowledge that I got into, the shows, which is part of the prototyping as well. We need to be out there to test if it's really going to work. And then after that one, you're going to see our show in New York Fashion Week in 2019. So yeah, after the New York Fashion Week shows, you're going to see the other prototypes that we did that we're testing out. Yeah, so some of the clients are celebrities. The reason why we're doing that was because we wanted to reach more people. We wanted to cultivate the awareness. And this is also part of the testing stage. We wanted to know if celebrities, if using that strategy to get more people is an effective strategy. So far, it's working for us. We are determining which celebrities are also going to work for us. Should we be more active in the pageant scene or what have you? So it's really well thought of. It's not like, oh, I want to be popular, so I'm gonna do this and that this person, etc., etc. No, it's a highly deliberate process that we actually engage in. So next slide is about our work with Miss Earth Nigeria, and again, next slide is about the Vogue Shoot. Last slide is some of the people whom we're supporting. They had to travel from different parts of the mountains to get to our weaving center. So we constantly have to empathize with them because they're also the reason why we're doing what we're doing. So yeah. So thank you. So that's my design thinking journey. Thank you very much. Please follow us and let's save the weave. Instagram is at Kandama Collective. And then, because we want to listen to the Gen Z, we have TikTok now. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sir Victor Baguilat. We really learned a lot from your talk today, and I think all of our students and also student leaders are excited to share their sentiments and, of course, their questions with our discussion today. I think we have a good question here with one of our student participants, Joseph Luis Barrera, and he mentioned here, good afternoon, sir. What can you suggest if someone realized that their passion is not aligned with their current course, given that he or she is in his or her final year already, like a fourth year student? What can he or she do about that kind of situation? Thank you, sir. I think, sir, it stemmed from
Yeah,
the
the
backstory
ikigai.
about being the law school.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Actually, it's okay. This is a very touchy topic, right? Because um, we all have different journeys, so it's so hard to give an advice and say, oh, like if you're feeling the same way, then leave or something, right? Um, what I have to say is make peace with where you are. Try to really listen what life is asking you to do. So this is where the intuition is very important, right? More than the intellect. Intuition is more like what is it that you want to give life to. So for me, like what helped was I had to meditate, like really, being in silence. For the more religious people out there, it's really praying, and so you need to find that space within you so that they can truly listen to what you want and where to go. And from when I asked that question, to the universe, I was like seeing signs from all over, right? Like there was a time when a friend of mine who was from Rappler, she just left Rappler because she felt like she was losing her identity, and she wanted to find herself. So she went to Europe, and then she just came back, and she's like, oh, let's hang out more, let's do yoga, let's do all of these really fun stuff. And then she thought of a business idea. She has investors for the media company, and then we just started to build the media company. So I was seeing signs. It was like coming to me. So I guess you just have to really chill and just make peace with where you are. Don't make any rash decisions, and then you will see the clear path. To me, my one of the things that I go by is that I ask myself, if it's not a clear yes, then it's a no, right? Yeah. So yeah, just be in silence first and make peace with where you are. I hope that
Thank you.
helps.
Yeah, thank you, sir Victor. I think that's one of the common sentiments of some of the students, especially those who are about to graduate, if they're really sure with the career path that they will be taking on after graduation. Is it also correct to say that even if you don't know that you have already understood design thinking, is it also part of the process that along the way you will also realize or understand design thinking when you're trying to look for that particular journey or that particular career or profession that you would like to pursue, sir? Let's say,
Yeah,
sir. Yeah. Go ahead, sir. Thank you.
actually, they're probably not aware, but they're doing like the steps of design thinking.
Mhm.
It just happens to them like naturally, which is a good thing. But it's a good thing that FEU has this program of really cultivating design thinking as a framework, as a process, to structure their journey. It took me, I think I was like entering my 30s when I started my social enterprise, and it's something that I was like, I hope I knew all of these things way back, right? So I would have to say that your students are very lucky that they got acquainted with the concept of design thinking at this point. Yeah.
All
I
right.
hope I was able to address what you were
Yeah,
saying.
that's very clear, Sir Victor. And I also would like to also acknowledge that there are some people or students even that they think the journey is also in a way scientific or serendipity, wherein there's an intersection between the chance and wisdom of what they need to do in the future. But yes,
True. Yeah.
I think that that's very clear now that we understand there are things that we need to address so that we will understand our ikagai, as you mentioned earlier in the opening part of your presentation.
And I think that's
Sir,
very
yeah.
important in the empathizing part. That in the
Mhm.
empathizing, it's really intuition. That's really listening from the heart, from an open heart, open mind, and open will, more than the intellect. Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, that's yeah. I think as part of the top skills necessary to thrive in the 21st century or the 21st century rather, part of it it's the emotional intelligence as mentioned by the World Economic Forum. And I think yeah, that's a good part of your presentation earlier, sir, that you also mentioned that. Okay, sir, there's another question here from one of our students. Good day, Mr. Victor. I'd like to know, how do you find inspiration in every work that you do? This may include other aspects besides designing.
Yeah.
So it's a personal question, sir. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, doing so many things. We all have like different processes, like creative processes, right? But like empathizing is really one way of going about it. You can start with what is it that your customer needs, and you can start from that process. Another way of going about about it, which I've been teaching my students as well, is you start with what's that vision of yours, right? Have that end in mind, and then you work backwards. It's what you call backcasting. So, for example, you wanted to create. I think when I had the idea of indigenous futurism, I was like really inspired by the by Black Panther, right? Where or Afrofuturism, where they can imagine Black Americans or essentially like Black Americans like thriving in a society, or Africans like thriving in a society wherein they are the most developed in the world. So I was like, why can't we do that for the Philippines too? So it's coming from that vision, I guess. And then this is what I pitched to Vogue Italia and with the Pia Words back, and then they just like played along. They liked the idea. So I guess the universe, God, the higher being, or whatever you would want to call it, will just like create that opportunity for you, as long as it's aligned with what you really want, what you're passionate about, and what your ikigai is. So I guess like you just have to chill, really, and then just things are gonna uncover on its own naturally. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one way. It's one process.
Yes, sir, Victor. I agree also with that, no? And of course, mentioning about the idea that in the context of understanding the inspiration, student leaders now would have more chance to do volunteer works, so that they'll be exposed, to the different facets, no, and of course the different fabrics, no, as we say, of the society, and they understand also the true are willing to create an impact for a better change within our society, but are too conscious about having a hero complex.
Oh, okay. I think the important thing is for you to really understand where that's coming from. Why are you conscious of? Well, firstly, it's a good thing that you're aware that you have a hero complex, right? And just sometimes, if you want to intervene to help a community, it's not about you, but it's about the community, right? But your personal journey is also very important, because that will sustain you. That's your emotional anchor. That's the hugot, which will like help you through the entire like several years of doing the thing. Because if you don't have that anchor, then after 1 year probably you're gonna drop out. But it's important for you to really make sure that your interior condition is correct, is right. It's in the right. Your motivations are in the right place. So I guess that's a way. That's my advice for someone who's too conscious about the hero having like a messiah complex. Like, why are you doing something? Why do you want a community? Is to help the community? Is it an ego need because you want to look good, or what have you? Or is it coming from a good place that you really want to take care of the community, to help the community, and what have you? And the antidote to that is just by listening, really empathizing, which is part of design thinking.
Maybe, sir, a good way to also look at this, the context of this question is, why do you really think that those from the millennial group, no, or generation would have this very idealistic mindset, and of course this messianic mindset?
Okay. Being a conscious consumer, or sustainable, or somebody who loves sustainability, is very different from having a messianic complex. The concept of being a messianic complex is that you feel like you're God who can save the world or something, right? And the antidote to that is to have a more ecosystem rather than an ecosystem kind of mentality, wherein the way to solve things especially a complex, complicated problem, is by co-creating or collaborating with other stakeholders in a community. I would love to believe that the millennials are more co-creative. The millennial Gen Z are more co-creative. There's a lot of platforms wherein we can, which makes us interconnected with each other. Like it's very easy to reach out. But of course, like there's also a tendency for us to be stuck in our echo chambers, right? But so we have to get out of that bubble and reach out. So my opinion to answer your question is that I think that we are more co-creative. It really depends on I guess like which society too. So I wouldn't. It's hard to say if it's a generational thing, but I would think that the technology facilitates the coordination more. So yeah.
Very insightful, sir. Yes, we understand, and we were able to elaborate on the context of that question. And I think the student leaders here would also say that that's true, that we are ready to collaborate and co-create, and of course, understand the limitations and the boundaries of the problems that we are facing now. But of course, that's also helping us to understand that design thinking will be a good way, to start looking for the solution, innovative and creative solutions to the problems. So there's another question from Kim Ariel Fuego. I'm proud to say that she's my former student, and she's actively engaging here. Sir, among the memorable moments you have experienced all throughout your career, what was the most unforgettable one that keeps you going despite the hardships you are currently handling that was brought by the pandemic? Very personal question, but I think, yes, sir. Thank you.
I think, of course, it's really interacting with the community, right? Because they're at the heart of what I'm doing for the most part. Fun part would be that keeps me want to carry on with the, I guess, like New York fashion. Maybe Paris Fashion Week, because I was with my mom and my aunt, and I was with the indigenous designers. And I just saw like how passionate indigenous designers from all over the world are with respect to their art, with respect to maintain or preserving their culture. So yeah, I was like taking notes, like taking notes of getting insights from them and learning and looking at the programs that they're instituting in their respective communities. There's so much to learn from the Inuk, from the Kiwi, I forgot what they called, the ones in New Zealand, the Maoris and the Aborigines from Australia. So yeah, that was very memorable. So I was like, oh, if they can do that in our community, why not, have that here in the Philippines too? So yeah.
Yes, so I can also relate to that now when you mentioned about exposing yourself, immersing yourself with the community. I think that's one of the things that our students here after graduation might want to venture on. They want to look at the world outside the four corners of the classroom and understand really the different point of views of different sectors, especially in your case, sir, the indigenous sector. Yeah, that's really not really given much attention until now. But I think that could have been also a good way to understand the problem of this country, especially that we understand their plight, and of course how helping them could also bring progress, development in the long run, and of course the sustainability aspect of understanding that by also what do you call this, addressing their issues and concern, we're also addressing the concern of the entire country, definitely. So thank you, sir, for that. There's another question. This is specific naman, sir. No? I think we are in the last two questions. What challenges have you encountered po in advocating indigenous art and textiles? How is your journey before gaining international recognition?
Oh, okay. So it's a two-part question.
Yes.
Let's answer how was my journey. Yeah, I guess there's a lot of challenges throughout the entire process. Of course, I think August 25th when we came out with the Vogue thing with the P Awards back, and it's about like indigenous art. And several weeks back, that's when the Nas Daily issue like happened, and we're so worried, like, oh my God, are we gonna end up like with the same bad press because we're using like indigenous art, specifically Ifugaos. And then like Pia did have like indigenous background, but it's a good thing that we, like throughout the entire process, we were very aware with the entire issue, like how sensitive it actually is. So that's the reason why I told the team, okay, let's just use indigenous Ifugao textiles, because that's a culture that I'm very much familiar with, that I'm immersed in. And since I have Ifugao heritage, then we should use that. I was very wary of using like other weeds from other communities, not because I don't want to support them, but it's because I just don't know like much about the community. So that's largely what my journey is about, and that's I guess like the biggest challenge. It's really knowing and being sensitive with the culture and communicating that to everyone. Since we are a cultural enterprise too, there are gatekeepers. They're like, okay, there's a purists. They're gonna tell you what to do, what not to do, what their conception of indigenous peoples are. So that's a challenge. So you really have to make them aware. You have to really communicate to them that you know what you're doing. That I have good intentions, and so I'm just glad that the community is also on board with respect. But it's an ongoing journey. There's so many people more to educate about this, and like given the pandemic too, like things are much harder. How would you make people want to buy a non-essential product really? So that's also one of the challenges that we're working on. We're constantly looking for like different markets. Kaya sir, sobrang importante yung emotional anchor, because when push comes to shove, when things get like really tough, you're just gonna drop it if you don't have that deep motivation, and if you're not coming from a great place talaga. So you know what your intention really is.
Yes. Sir Victor, that question was from Jade San Felipe. He knows better how to really make sure that the rights and of course the indigenous treasures through the fabric and textiles are really what I call this showcased in a way that would not really would not be detrimental, but rather would be inspiring, and also putting the spotlight to the skills of our traditional and indigenous weavers. So thank you, sir, for that. I think that's a good way to make us understand how your journey, how challenging your journey was, and until now, sir. I think, sir, we're in the final question. This is from Mark Loren Villaverde. Hello, Sir Victor. I am curious on how you got people to work along with your vision. Ayan, considering that people in general is appalled to changes.
I guess if you really believe in something, in your vision, you will just attract people who have the same vision, or you will, these people will just be there. This is the same way why, for example, there are people listening to this workshop, and the same way that your office actually invited me, it's because they also believed in the story, in the vision, the narrative. I guess a function of it's coming from a good place, right? Knowing you're having a very good intention, because people sense that. People have strong intuition. They know if you really have, for the most part, you really feel and know if you're coming from a good place. So just have the clarity of intention, and that's one thing. And I think competence is very important. You need to know the tools, the frameworks, that are going to help you, so that once they're on board, you can structure things, and make sure that they wouldn't be displeased with how you organize things. So yeah, I just, for me, everything just happened by, I guess, good timing, and yeah, like people just believed in that vision. So I guess that's the very first part. They have to know, feel, believe in your vision. So
you attract also other people who would share the same sentiment, values, core values together, and then you just end up working together. And I think, Sir Victor, the core values of fortitude, excellence, and uprightness are really fitting in terms of understanding more how design thinking really works in the way we would be working with our careers and our profession in the future, especially for our graduates. So I think, sir, we have as much as I would like to ask more questions, we don't have the luxury of time. Thank you again, Sir Victor, for such insightful, informative, and of course, inspiring talk for our student leaders and our participants today. We learned a lot from you, and we understand that design thinking as an innovative, creative way of solving problem is the way to go, especially now that we are facing different crises, no? Especially in a multi-sectoral lens. We understand that design thinking will help us understand the problem, the root cause of the problem, start with ideation and until the execution. And of course, the sustainable way of supporting those solutions to our problems. Thank you again, sir. There you have it. Before we officially conclude our You Lead Leadership Talk today, we would like to present the Certificate of Appreciation to our resource speaker. Let me read the text first. Far Eastern University Certificate of Appreciation is awarded to Victor Baguilat for his valuable contribution as resource speaker during the You Lead Leadership Talk series given this 9th day of November 2021 at the Far Eastern University, Manila, signed by Graciel A. Lintag, Director, FEU Student Development, Maria Carmen Sita Subalfonso, Director of FEU Career Placement Office, and Generoso Pamitan Jr., PhD, Assistant Vice President for Academic Services. Sir Victor, before we officially end this ULID talk, are there any parting words, final piece of advice, or anything that you would like to share with our student leaders and other audience, especially now in terms of the design thinking as a process for us, for student leaders? Thank you, sir.
I think there are just two things which keep on to people in the organization and what have you, and listen to yourself. Do not forget to listen to yourself. So that's what empathy largely is about. So I just want to say good luck to everybody on your design thinking journey. It's very exciting, and yeah, just have fun and chill. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sir Victor. We will be keeping this in mind, especially that I think the striking part there is when you mentioned that it's okay if you haven't found your ikigai. It's not like a race. No, it's there will be a proper timing, and then of course the key way to look at it, the key concept or the lesson that we got is to listen, definitely. At this juncture, thank you again, Sir Victor, for your time and for gracing this event with your valuable knowledge and experience. And to all our students in attendance, please do not forget to answer the online student activity evaluation form so that CAPO and SDEV can provide you with your e-certificate of attendance. We would like to invite you again to another ULEAD Leadership Talk very soon. And on behalf of the FEU Career and Placement and Office of the Student Development, many thanks to our dear students and student leaders for joining us. We hope that you've learned a lot from today's ULEAD event. For updates, please don't forget to check the Career and Placement Office official Facebook page and the Student Development official Facebook page as well. And as we end, may we invite everyone to join us in singing the FEU hymn. This is again your MC, Ron Gascon. Keep safe, everyone. Be brave. Tamaraos.